The innovation of PayPal. After Zip2 was sold, people thought I'd made it. They saw the headlines, Elon Musk becomes a millionaire at 28. What they didn't see was the restlessness. Because when you've spent years building something from scratch, success doesn't feel like rest, it feels like a challenge. I didn't want to just build a company. I wanted to build systems that move humanity forward. And the next system I wanted to fix was money itself. That idea became X.com, and it nearly destroyed me before it changed the world. After selling Zip2, I finally had some capital, about $22 million. For the first time, I could breathe. But breathing felt strange. I'd spent so long chasing something that still felt incomplete. So, I asked myself, what's the next frontier of the internet? Everyone was building portals, search engines, or media sites. I saw something different: the financial world. Banks were slow, transactions took days, and sending money online was nearly impossible. I thought, what if we could make money move as fast as information? Imagine a global bank that anyone could access fast, secure, digital. People said it was crazy. But crazy is just another word for ahead of its time. I poured almost everything I had into the idea. The name was simplex.com, a place where people could store, send, and invest money online with just an email address. At that time, the domain x.com itself was considered strange, mysterious, even risky. But to me, it symbolized the unknown, the frontier of innovation. I rented a small office in Palo Alto again. The smell of coffee and code filled the air, just like the old Zip2 days. But this time, I wasn't sleeping on the floor. I was building something that could change how the world transacts. I recruited a small group of engineers, people who didn't just want a paycheck, but a purpose. They were brilliant, driven, and fearless. We worked around the clock designing systems that could move money securely at the speed of light. At first, even convincing banks to talk to us was nearly impossible. They didn't understand why anyone would want to trust the internet with their savings. But we did. We knew the world was changing, and I kept reminding the team, we're not just writing code, we're rewriting how the world handles trust. Around the same time, another small startup called Confinity was working on something similar. They were led by Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, sharp minds with a different approach. Instead of competing to the death, we decided to merge. Two visions, one goal: to make online payments easy and universal. The merger created something new: PayPal. Suddenly, everything started moving fast. User growth exploded. Every day, thousands of people were signing up. The excitement was electric. But so were the tensions. As PayPal grew, so did the conflicts. Different visions, different egos, different paths to the same goal. I wanted to push forward with bold upgrades, new infrastructure, a universal digital bank. Others wanted to focus on stability and user growth. The disagreements became personal. And then, it happened. While I was on a flight to Australia, halfway around the world, I was replaced as CEO. No warning, no discussion, just a board decision. By the time I landed, the company I built had been taken out of my hands. It's strange how the world celebrates your success while quietly taking it away from you. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. But most of all, I felt quiet. I realized leadership isn't about control. It's about contribution. And though I wasn't in charge anymore, I still owned a large part of PayPal, and I believed in its mission. Sometimes you have to lose position to gain perspective. That's when I learned that ego is the enemy of evolution. The idea mattered more than my name. In 2002, PayPal caught the attention of a giant eBay. They saw how fast we were growing, how users were trusting us more than traditional banks. They made an offer, $1.5 billion in stock. It was surreal. The small dream I once coded with sleepless nights had become a global system used by millions. My personal payout was over $180 million. But if you think that was the finish line, you'd be wrong. Because for me, money was never the motivation, it was fuel. When PayPal was sold, I didn't celebrate. I sat alone and asked myself, what now? I thought about the biggest problems facing humanity: energy, transportation, space. If money could move fast, what if rockets could too? That thought became SpaceX, and later Tesla. X.com and PayPal weren't just companies, they were training grounds. They taught me how fragile dreams are and how powerful they become when protected by persistence. If you're watching this right now, maybe you're standing where I once stood, in the middle of doubt. Maybe you've been told your idea is too ambitious. Maybe you've been betrayed, replaced, or ignored. Good. That's your sign that you're doing something that matters. The world doesn't fight mediocrity, it fights change. Keep moving. Keep building. Because if your vision scares people, it means you're onto something big. Every failure, every setback, every betrayal, they're not endings. They're ignition points. Without Zip2, there'd be no PayPal. Without PayPal, there'd be no SpaceX. And without SpaceX, maybe humanity wouldn't dream of Mars. So if you're struggling today, remember this. Greatness is forged in pressure. The cracks you feel right now, they're how the light gets in. If this story inspired you, share this message with someone chasing their own impossible dream. This is Balos Mind Shift Motivations, reminding you every setback is set up for a greater comeback. Elon quote, "You can replace a CEO, but you can't replace vision." After PayPal invention, the dream that everyone laughed at. They said I was crazy. They said I'd never make it work. You can't compete with NASA. You can't build rockets cheaper than governments. You'll fail like everyone else who tried. But here's the truth. Every impossible idea starts as a joke until it changes the world. Elon Musk. And this is the story of how I took the most insane dream imaginable, launching rockets into space, and turned it into SpaceX, a company that proved the impossible is just the starting line. If you've ever been told your dreams are too big, or that you don't belong in the world you're trying to build, then listen closely, because my story is really about you. I didn't start with rockets. I started with curiosity. As a kid growing up in South Africa, I used to stare at the night sky for hours. While other kids talked about toys, I asked myself, why aren't we out there? We had gone to the moon decades ago. And then, nothing. No progress. No colonization. Just silence. Humanity had stopped dreaming. And that terrified me. Because to stop exploring is to start dying. So I made a promise to myself. If no one else was going to reignite that dream, I would. But I had no experience, no background in aerospace. Just a vision and a refusal to accept limits. After selling my earlier companies, I finally had enough money to attempt something audacious. Not to buy yachts or islands, but to build a path to the stars. I started researching rockets on my own. I read textbooks. I talked to engineers. I visited Russia hoping to buy a used intercontinental missile to send a small payload to space. They laughed in my face. One of the Russian engineers even spat on the floor and said, "You don't have the money for space." That moment it changed me. Because I realized something. I didn't need to buy a rocket. I could build one. That's when SpaceX was born. Not from wealth, but from rejection. In 2002, I gathered a small group of engineers in a tiny warehouse in El Segundo, California. No prestige, no funding from the government. Just a handful of people crazy enough to believe we could build rockets from scratch. We called ourselves Space Exploration Technologies, SpaceX for short. The idea was simple. Build reusable rockets. Launch cheaper. Fail faster. Learn faster. But the execution? That was anything but simple. We worked 100-hour weeks. We slept on the factory floor. We ate cold pizza for breakfast and went home smelling like jet fuel. There was no guarantee we'd make it. But we believed. And sometimes, belief is the only oxygen you have. Our first rocket was called Falcon 1. We poured our hearts into it. Every weld, every line of code, every bolt, it carried a piece of us. Launch day came. We counted down. 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. And then, it exploded. Months of work gone in seconds. People laughed again. See? He's not a rocket scientist. SpaceX is done. But I wasn't done. Failure didn't scare me, stagnation did. We rebuilt. We launched again. The second rocket failed. The third rocket failed again. 3 failures. 3 punches to the gut. And yet, I couldn't stop. Because I believed that one more try could change everything. By the time the 4th launch came around, we were out of money. I had invested nearly all my PayPal earnings. Tesla was struggling. Friends begged me to quit. I had 1 rocket left. If it failed, SpaceX would die. I remember standing there, watching the sky as the engines roared. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Minutes passed like hours. And then, the signal came through. Falcon 1 reached orbit. We did it. Tears fell. The room erupted. It wasn't just a rocket launch, it was proof that failure doesn't define you. Persistence does. That day, SpaceX didn't just survive. It was reborn. After that success, NASA took notice. They signed a contract with us for cargo delivery to the International Space Station. For the first time, a private company was trusted to reach orbit. The world called it a miracle. I called it the result of refusing to give up. We built new rockets, Falcon 9, then Falcon Heavy, each one more ambitious than the last. Each one proving that innovation doesn't come from giant institutions. It comes from people who dare to dream bigger than the rules allow. And soon, we weren't just sending cargo. We were sending people. When we sent our first astronauts to the ISS aboard the Crew Dragon, I thought back to that day in Russia, the engineer laughing in my face. Now, American astronauts were flying into space, on rockets we built, in a factory we created, from scratch. It wasn't pride I felt. It was gratitude. Because the truth is, I couldn't have done it alone. It took thousands of brilliant minds, millions of sleepless hours, and a belief that humanity deserves to reach beyond this planet. When that rocket lifted off, I didn't just see fire and smoke. I saw hope. But even that wasn't enough. I don't want to stop at Earth's orbit. I want us to become a multi-planetary species. That's why we're building Starship, the most powerful rocket ever made. Fully reusable, capable of carrying humans to Mars. People ask, why Mars? Why not fix Earth first? And I tell them, we must do both. We must protect Earth and prepare for the stars. Because one day, something could happen. A meteor, a virus, a disaster. And when that day comes, humanity needs a second home. Starship isn't just a rocket. It's a lifeboat for our species. But dreams have a cost. Behind every success were moments of heartbreak. Nights I couldn't sleep. Days I thought it was over. There were times when Tesla was collapsing. SpaceX was on life support. And I was borrowing money for rent. People see the rockets and the headlines. They don't see the tears, the breakdowns, the loneliness. But that's the truth about chasing greatness. It's painful. It demands everything. Yet, if you keep going, the world eventually moves out of your way. Because persistence breaks walls that talent alone never could. If you're listening right now, and your dream feels impossible, I want you to remember this. There's no such thing as an overnight success. Only people who refuse to stop when it gets hard. When everyone doubts, you keep building. When you fail, rebuild. When you're exhausted, rest, then rise again. Don't let fear of failure kill your future. Every rocket we launched taught me something. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the foundation of it. So here's what I've learned. Dreams are fragile until you give them structure. Ideas are crazy until you make them real. And the impossible? It's only impossible until someone refuses to stop trying. Elon Musk. And if there's one message I want you to take from my story, it's this. Don't wait for permission to dream. Don't wait for someone to believe in you. Be the one who believes when no one else does. Because one day, the same people who doubted you will say they always knew you'd make it. Stay inspired. Stay fearless. And remember, the sky is not the limit. It's just the beginning. Subscribe to Balos Mind Shift Motivations, where dreamers become doers and believers become legends.